Today, I'm reviewing the ZiiGaat Lush. This is marketed as a reference studio monitor. It's got one dynamic driver and 4 balanced armature drivers. We're going to check it out. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? David here from Prime Audio Reviews. That's the box of the ZiiGaat Lush. Inside, I'll show you. I don't usually do the unboxing things, but I want to show you something. It's going to take me ages to get this box open. I wasn't even kidding, but bam! Look at that. They've changed their case style, and now you get this. And yeah, it's a case. All right. Now, let's look at the IMs. Boom. Okay. The ZiiGaat Lush. Pretty nice. Your typical ZiiGaat, well, typical almost anything nowadays. 3D printed resin shells with fancy faceplates and glossy black shells. I do like the faceplate design here, though. I think that's quite classy. It looks nice. But yeah, the shells, they're a little bit on the chunky side. For comparison, here's the ZiiGaat Super Mix 4. They're about the same, really. And the Kiwi Ears K4, same again. So yeah, they're about average in size, although they do stick out from my ears a little bit. They are rather wide. Apart from that, they're nice and comfortable though. I can wear these all day long without any pain or fatigue. So yeah, not bad in terms of shell design. So what would you pay for this 5 driver IM, 1 dynamic driver, 4 balanced armatures? The price is $179 US. So it's edging up there in price. It's up there with the Kiwi Ears K4, Super Mix 4, the Moondrop Cadence, all these types of things. Oh yeah, I forgot to look at the cable. The cable is, look, honestly, it's not bad, but it's a bit disappointing considering the price point of this IM. It's super generic. It is non-modular, so you're only stuck with a 3.5mm single-ended termination. It's not available with a 4.4mm configuration. Of course, you can use the IMs with any standard 0.78mm 2-pin cable, but nonetheless, I think they should probably provide a better one in the package. Maybe they were thinking, you know, because this is marketed as being a studio monitor, maybe they're thinking, yeah, single-ended, don't need anything fancy, utilitarian, functional, all that kind of stuff. So is it, in fact, reference neutral studio grade? Well, let's talk about the sound. And yeah, I'd say it pretty much is kind of reference level neutral, although I have to say the sub bass is elevated above what would be, you know, technically neutral, but it's there for you got to have a little bit of musicality in your sound, otherwise it's just going to be super boring. So basically it delivers music as is without dressing it up or without smoothing over the edges. Well, that's not exactly true. There is a little smoothing. I'll talk about that later on when we get to the treble. But for someone like me who tends to gravitate more towards warmer and more saturated sound, the Lush might not seem all that appealing on paper. But in reality, you know, it's quite refreshing to have this kind of transparency. It favors a more truthful delivery that's actually quite enticing to listen to. One of the standout features of the Lush, I think, is its versatility. Like, it performs equally well no matter what track or what music genre you throw at it. So that makes them good for casual listening, but not only that, it's also obviously compelling if you do want to use them as a serious tool for studio or live monitoring. It's not the most immersive music, like you don't get the same engagement as you might out of a V-shaped or U-shaped. Well, I don't anyway. But it does allow you to appreciate recordings in their natural form, so to speak. Graph. Oh, look at that. Pretty flat, except for that bulge in the sub bass. And let's get onto the bass now. So most of the weight, as you can see, is centered in the sub bass. It is satisfying. It has a bit of a rumble. It is a slightly gentle rumble, but it is there. The depth of the bass is actually quite impressive. It's pretty good. The mid bass, on the other hand, is much more restrained. It does have good texture and it does have good layering in the bass, but so the Lush is definitely not a bass head IEM. It doesn't have that sort of real physical impact. It does have enough warmth though to give kick drums and bass guitars a natural body and a natural decay as well that complements the mid-range surprisingly well. So let's move on to that mid-range now, and if I'm being honest, the mid-range of the Lush here is, it probably exceeds my expectations for something at this price point. It's very honest, it's very transparent, yet at the same time it has this sort of inviting naturalness to it, and that's thanks to a neutral note size and pretty impressive timbral accuracy. So it's got quite accurate timbre throughout the mid-range. Nothing sounds out of place. Vocals are rich and articulate, and instruments have a good mixture of resonance and body and sort of upper harmonics as well. And the mids are free from muddiness. At the same time, they're not shouty from being artificially boosted in the presence range. So pretty impressive mid-range tuning overall. With a more conventional tuning, that this type of mid-range might easily be overshadowed by the bass and the treble, but the way that this is tuned gives the mid-range just enough space to shine. In fact, it's the mid-range quality that enables the bass to step back and have a supporting role rather than trying to compete with the mid-range. Now, for this type of tuning to work, the treble has to be executed with care. It needs to bring air, clarity, and detail without overstepping. So with those subdued bass levels, the treble could easily come off as strident or overly bright, but it never does. It doesn't cross into fatiguing territory, at least not for my ears. Still, the treble extension is solid. It's quite good. It doesn't feel like it hits an early roll-off. It doesn't feel like there's a ceiling that cuts off treble notes at a certain point. It's crisp and it's airy, and it creates a sense of spaciousness. And while the treble is what I would consider smooth, it's still not especially forgiving for poorly recorded or sibilant material. So if a recording is inherently sibilant, that will still come through. Now for the soundstage and technicalities, I'd say the soundstage has fairly good width, but only moderate forward depth. However, it does have a decent sense of height in the stage, and that helps maintain that feeling of openness and spaciousness. The detail retrieval, I would say it is good. It's not class leading, like some micro details are gently smoothed over, but most elements are still clearly rendered in there. Imaging is fairly precise. It's pretty good in terms of positional cues, pretty good for gaming as well. Instrument separation is commendable, but I wouldn't say it's exceptional. Right, let's do a couple of comparisons. We'll start with the ZiiGaat Supermix 4, which is roughly the same. It's a bit cheaper actually, but the Supermix 4 has got a bit of an exotic driver configuration: one dynamic driver, one balanced armature, one planar magnetic, and one piezoelectric. But you know, all that aside, let's talk about how they compare. So the Supermix 4 is slightly more V-shaped compared to the Lush, which, as I said, is fairly neutral and transparent. Both of these IEMs are similar in bass quantity, but the SM4's upper mids and treble get more of a lift, and that gives it a brighter overall tonality. Treble sensitive people will probably find the SM4 too energetic and possibly harsh, whereas the Lush is pretty smooth overall in the highs. The SM4 has a more energetic presentation across the board. It sort of grabs you and keeps you engaged. It grabs your attention and says, hey, listen here. But it comes also at the risk of listener fatigue. And in addition to that, the SM4's timbre is nowhere near as accurate due to its focus on clarity and technical performance over naturalness. So the SM4 has a larger soundstage with more depth as well and superior layering, which makes the Lush sound a bit flatter in comparison, both tonality wise and in terms of staging. But if I were to hazard a guess, I think most people overall would probably prefer the sound of the Lush over the SM4. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the Kiwi Ears K4, another fan favorite. So the K4, it adds more color to its sound, particularly in the low frequencies and the lower mid-range. It has more bass impact and it has more sub-bass rumble, whereas the Lush is more neutral, except that, like I said, it does have some sub-bass emphasis that is above neutral. K4's lower mids and presence region, they get a boost to counterbalance its extra bass energy. So overall, the K4's more energetic, it's more vibrant. And to match the enthusiasm of its bass and mid-range, the treble is also lifted on the K4, and that gives it more brilliance, more micro detail retrieval, so it's better detail retrieval overall. And the Lush again opts for more smoothness. The K4 has more soundstage depth and slightly better layering, while the Lush has a wider soundstage but less intimate presentation because the stage position is further away. The perceived stage position is further away from the listener. So where are we with the ZiiGaat Lush? I think it's a pretty cool IEM. There is one problem that I've had with mine though, and that is the left side has some pretty serious driver fatigue. So even when I'm moving my jaw, I cannot eat with these because the left side just crackles and pops, and that's rather frustrating. I haven't heard other people complaining about it, so maybe it's just my unit. And you know, as long as I'm listening just normally relaxing, it's fine. But if I do happen to move my jaw, like if I'm chewing something, then it will crackle and pop. But really, I think this is a pretty solid IEM, and I think it's one of the few that claims to be sort of good as a reference monitor and actually lives up to that claim. It does seem nice and honest in its presentation. It's not overly colored. It doesn't have an emphasized pinna gain to force clarity or bring you those extra tiny minute details that you might be looking for. It doesn't have that, but what it does have is accuracy and smoothness overall. I think it's pretty good. It's a little bit exy. I wish the cable was better. I wish my unit didn't have driver flex. Apart from that, it's a pretty solid IEM. Would I use it for a daily driver? Probably not, but I could definitely get by if I had nothing else on hand. Having said that, let's wrap it up. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it the old thumbs up, Pa Family Audiophile style. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do it now. And until next time, I'll see you later.